maybe the picture that is on the video as it stays on the screen. So make sure your eyes are like wide open. They're all my eyes are always closed when this thing starts. Oh, live! Here we are. We're live. That's the beginning. So yeah, so this is the 34th call. So we're on to our second third of the century, I guess, of these Wagn Circle calls, and today it's been a long hiatus, but we got lots of different things from Wagn 113 and 114 to talk about. And today we're going to look mostly at the new account handling, and so I think we'll go back and follow something close to our normal format and just have a few go around the circle first and say some hellos and answer a goofy question, and then we'll go and I'll probably talk a little bit about the subject. I haven't prepared a lot, but I'll just sort of talk about what we've done in terms of accounts and answer some questions as we go, and then it'll be a little bit more freeform for the rest of it, and talk about what people want to talk about, whether they're up to different projects or want to I don't know, be a little freeform at that point. So the question that we're for starting here that we're going to use to frame is what's your biggest news since the last time you were at a Wagn Circle? Which may have been a while. I haven't actually thought about the question yet, so I haven't figured out my answer. But I'm going to go. Oh shoot! It's in order by first name, right? So on most people's screen, am I all the far left? Oh, that means I have to go first. Okay. Let's see. My biggest news since the last Wagn Circle. It feels like the biggest thing is that both my kids are in new schools, and that it's not big news to anyone outside, but that changing them to new schools was a big deal, and they're both doing well now, and it's been really it's fun. Maybe I have to get. They're not quite ready for Wagn Circles yet, but maybe I have to bring them on sometime soon and start them Wagoneering. That's my biggest. So next for me is John.
Well, I feel like you tailor-made this question for me. The biggest thing I've done since the last Wagn call was walk across the country with a few dozen other people. We left Los Angeles March 1st, and we got to Washington, D.C. November 1st. And we were doing this to inspire action on the climate crisis. I learned quite a lot, and I'm definitely energized and well networked now to go further with that. We had a wagon for it. I evangelized it for a bit at the beginning, kind of let that go after a while. I'm excited now that I know that even people are going to be working on improving the experience on phones and tablets, because that was a significant challenge. But I'm just excited to see all the progress that's been happening on Wagn and catch up on it on these Wagn Circles and stay in touch with other people excited about Wagn. Yeah, that's it. And I'm probably going to go off video for a bit here because I need to make myself some lunch. But I'll go and come back.
Philip, you're next for me.
So since the last Wagn call I attended.
Have you attended a Wagn call?
No.
Okay. Yes, I was born. I guess for you it's sort of an introduce yourself, but you do have some big news.
Yeah, so the biggest news is that I am going to become a father next year.
Awesome. So I really enjoyed the way he told us. He said, I'm sorry, I didn't get a whole lot done today. We were in a developer call, and he was saying, I didn't get a whole lot done today because I was at the hospital for 4 hours, and we were all worried about what's going on. He said, oh, no, they just went and was at the waiting list for a while, and then I had to watch this black and white movie. In terms of the black and white movie was the ultrasound. So he's set us up there pretty well. So Philip is working with the working with Grass Commons as part of the new WikiRate project group of hires, and it's but is doing all sorts of low-level deep digging, and he actually found Wagn. Not Wagn didn't find him. He was finishing up a PhD in Bonn, the University of Bonn, and was using Wagn to create a site for mathematics, basically a mathematics journal, online mathematics journal, and was before. Even still, we haven't done a lot of great documentation of how to write a mod, a Wagn mod. But before we had any at all, he was in there writing mods to make it use LaTeX, and it was very impressive because when he called and wanted to some guidance on things, and it's still kind of the case that whenever he has questions for me, it's the questions that I haven't figured out the answer to yet. So he gets all the way past basically up to where it's the edge of what we actually know very quickly on any given subject matter. So that was really fun. Sorry. So next, I'm slowing down the intro process. Peter, I think you're next.
Okay. Well, for me, the same as you, Essen, the guys. So my eldest son finished his studies, econometrics, and my middle son, he got his bachelor degree in medicine, and he is continuing. And my youngest son, he got his degrees from high school, and he chose the same study as his oldest brother.
Did you say ecometrics or econometrics? What?
Econometrics.
Econometrics. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Neat. They're all studying in Holland, or are they studying?
Yes. Well, actually, the whole family, the 5 of us, we are studying in the Erasmus School, Erasmus University of Rotterdam.
All 5 of you. Wow.
So all 5 of us. Yeah. That's
fantastic. Okay. All right, Tom, that leaves you.
I'm boring. I hadn't done anything. I can't walking across the country or having a baby. I've got twin boys that have grown up, and they're actually, this is maybe something to brag about for them. They work at Raycom Sports here in North Carolina. It's a TV studio, basically covers ACC basketball and football games. And they're actually up for 4 Emmys each.
Wow.
It's a regional Emmy, so it's not a big deal like on Hollywood, but they're up to that. And I'm still cruising along, trying not to be a lawyer. And, I've actually got, I guess this is big news for me, I've actually got somebody that hired me to do a Ruby on Rails application.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Nice.
So that's, maybe I can play at the computer all day and not have to be a lawyer.
Okay, well, I will start us off on this the timeout accounts. There are a lot of different things, lots of different things to work through. I was trying to get, yeah, okay, I've got a couple slides here that I can show from that I actually did at a presentation at OpenSim in Berlin. But the main thing is that, John, don't mind, we're getting a little noise from you, so I'm going to mute you for now, but unmute.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. The main thing is that all of accounts are now handled in cards. And there's been this long progression of moving things that weren't cards into cards. There used to be a separate permissions table, and that went away, and it all handled it in cards through sets and rules and things. And there was a card types table, and that's gone. And then there's a roles table and a users roles table, and assigning all those roles now then happens in cards. But the last really big chunk, there were several other little smaller things, but the biggest most difficult thing that was left was accounts. And so the way it works now is not all that dissimilar to the way it was before, but everything is stored in cards. And this was really pushed by the fact that WikiRate wanted a different kind of sign-up process, but it was very difficult to customize anything involving accounts before, because that was all a separate system, and we really wanted to make it so that everything you do when you write a mod is about changing card behavior, and don't want tons of different kinds of APIs for different subsystems. So to make it so that it's consistent with the Wagn approach, we moved it to the all accounts are in cards. So basically, when you go to sign up, you create a sign up card, and either automatically or by verification or however, depending on what permissions are set up, but ultimately that gets changed into, by default, a user card. You can change the name of it to a person card or something else. We used to call them account requests, but sign up was a little bit more consistent, given that it wasn't always about sort of requesting to someone for manual approval. It's often sort of automatically handled, and so it's just a little bit cleaner to call it that. But so then, of course, you put in your email and a password, and the password is encrypted, and all the data that's stored along the way is stored in separate cards. We did add extra measures to make it so that you can't go pulling down encrypted passwords and and those sorts of things that make it. Those are just hidden. For all the views of that are hidden, and it wasn't that difficult to do, since the views depend upon each view depends on something else, and so there were only a few places where we had to completely block it, but permissions is guarded pretty closely there. But if we create a token for you to reset your password, that's a card. If we create if we use a salt for the encryption, then that's a card. Everything is there's no data that's been outside a user's table now. It's all been migrated into cards. And let me see, I'm going to screen share here a bit and show you one slide in particular. Let's see. I'm not seeing where my presentation is. I'm just going to share my whole screen then and try to find it. Here we go. Maybe I can make this a little bigger. Are you guys able to read this?
Yeah.
So this is a little bit, just to get into a little bit more nitty-gritty. Actually, I'll back up and say just this: the whole web API for Wagn is now get, post, put, delete on some card with a name. This is pretty much the whole thing. We do have get variants down here if you don't have, if you're in a simple thing, just want to do something through a link. But basically, everything that you do, whether you're signing up or signing in or doing any other things like that, everything is just getting to a card, posting a card, putting a card, deleting a card, and that's how it all works. Which makes this particular slide extremely simple. Then when you start doing complex things to it, you can see that there are interesting ways that it happens. So first, this is a little bit of the process for signing up and going, becoming a user here, just to show how we can do all this with that kind of RESTful API. So first, what you're doing is you're getting a new view of an unnamed card of type sign up. So that's what that's very common for whenever we're creating a form. You say what type it is, and you get the new view, and that's what a sign up form looks like. It's a form of a card. Then you post that.
Sorry to interrupt, and maybe it's just me, but everything blacked out. So I'm actually not seeing the screen share. Are other people seeing the screen share?
I was
seeing the screen share.
Okay, then I think it's probably just on my end. Okay, go ahead.
Are you seeing anything else in the room, or is it just the?
Yeah, I'm not seeing any video.
Totally blacked out. Okay.
Anyway, I'll deal with it.
Okay, sorry. I end up with Google Hangouts having to reload sometimes, bring it back. But okay, and so then of course we post, and we've done a lot of handling of calling them subcards in this context. So when a lot of times you end up, a single post will have a lot of cards in it. It goes through one main card, and then everything else that comes through is a subcard with email and password, and that's a really common pattern. And we'll talk a little bit more about all the things that were done to update the tracking of all these kinds of actions, which is Philip's put a lot of effort into. But then you can get, at that point you have a sign-up card, assuming that basically whatever way that you sign up. Usually we don't make it so it automatically becomes a user. Either we make it so that you could have to do verification, self-verification with a lot of sites, so that if let's say Tom were to sign up for WikiRate, then he would sign up and get this email to verify his address, and he clicks on the link in the email, and that goes through. at any rate, there's often this page where you're still a sign up and haven't verified the account or had it approved, and at that point you can just go look at the sign up card. You've got it. There's a card there that's just sitting there, and review the details, and then you put an update to generate the validation tokens in the verification email. This is in the case where it's an approved case. If you can do it, if in that example that I mentioned before, where it's sort of you're automatically sent a verification email, that it's already created as part of that initial post. But if I have to, like on Wagn.org right now, we have it so that I individually or someone with an account individually approves the request, just so that we are reviewing it by hand. Then you need to have this step 4, the way you put it. And then it's just a get with an update variant to verify the token. It changes the sign-up cards to user. It starts the session. So we really are doing all these things just by with the very few actions on cards. There's not a if again, at least a couple of you, Tom and Philip, and I don't know who else has played with Ruby on Rails, but there's not a whole lot of action. There's no action for sign up. There's no separate controller action for any of these things. It's all just it's just basically these things are translating into create, read, update, delete actions, and just those 4, and everything that you're doing is going through those. Yeah, and so this is the. I'm not going to go through this whole slideshow by any stretch. It's kind of a long one, but that's basically any given. This is actually old language. I should call it an act at this point, but anyway, this is part of the strength of the API, that you can do so many of these things with it. So where did I? Whoa, let's stop screen sharing. So that's the big thing there is, I don't know if there are an awful lot of questions about all the account handling, but it took quite a bit of work. And I think what you'll see as you go through is that even though these are all separate cards, like there's a card for email and a card for password, the user experience is not all that different, because you can still go to the card menu and go to the account details and edit it as a form. We may end up wanting to change the user experience to make it simpler, but there's a lot of increasingly patterns where the storage is very simple, and we're kind of writing more interface on top of that. And so where this fits into the long path for Wagn is that we've been trying to get the data, push to where we can do everything with this data model of everything in a card. And now we're to the point where there's very little left that isn't a card. There's still a sessions table that stores it's the built-in Ruby session handling, and very little is stored in sessions. But basically, we still use a separate database table for that. And beyond that, it's rather tricky to even list things that aren't there anymore. As we'll talk about in other calls, JavaScript is now all in cards. Email is now all in cards. CSS has been in cards for a while. I don't even know what else we've moved in recently, but there's no other tables other than basically the revision handling, the historic data that is in something that's not the cards table. So that's the main thing I wanted to bring, and a fairly short presentation on that. But does anybody have questions about what I've done so far, or want to take that into a different direction?
Well, my question is more on the well, maybe it's a branch or it's not a branch. What you're doing for WikiRate for WikiRate, because it looks really impressive, and well, I would like to have the same look and feel as the WikiRate site.
That's a good question. So let me start. I'll start from the bottom and go all the way up to the top. Basically, the WikiRate is often a little bit ahead of the gem deployment in terms of when we release a gem. A lot of times we'll put slightly more experimental code out on WikiRate because they're so sometimes we'll do, the WikiRate will push the code in a certain direction, and we'll have to generalize it a bit more to make sure that we're not breaking anything else before we release it as a gem. But for the most part, they're following the standard gem pattern, and right now they are. I don't think they have any changes from the 1.14.1 release. The language that we're using now, we talk a lot about, of course, the gem, the Wagn gem, which will be the Deco gem once we go through with the renaming, which will be there won't be a Wagn 2.0, there'll be Deco 1.0, and that'll be next year. I don't know exactly when. But so that's so there's basically on that gem level there's no difference. But what we call each installation of Wagn, each Wagn site, we're calling a deck. So it'll make even more sense once we call it Deco. But there's the Deco gem, and there'll be each deck of cards.
That's DEC?
DECK.
DECK. Okay.
Yes. So like a deck of cards, like 52 cards, is called a deck. And so it's part of the card metaphor, and the Deco DECKO is what we're going to be renaming is Wagn to DECKO. And it is kind of an Art Deco reference. It's got this artsy side, and it's got the ship deck. So it's still, even though we're losing the Wagn name, we still have a transportation metaphor. But so you move some of those along as well. But and it's also, but I think the sort of the notion of the all hands on deck, or the everyone together, the collaborative ship. We do like that part of the name as well. Okay, so WikiRate in this new language, WikiRate is one deck, right? And all of their code. One thing that is made much simpler now by the way we're doing things is that you can write custom code that without your gem library is often some other place, and all your custom code with your mods are local. All of that code is at Wagn/WikiRate on GitHub. So it's the full. Philip, would you mind plopping in the full link to the WikiRate repository there? Anyway, so there are some modifications there. The biggest, I don't know exactly in terms of code count, but conceptually the biggest modification that is not really part of the main gem is the voting. So I don't know if you've seen WikiRate recently, but they have claims and votes and all these sorts of things. And I do think, by the way, we're going to have WikiRate come into a presentation, maybe not next week, but fairly soon, and show a lot of the things they've been working on, and we, the coders, can show how it connects there. So that is. Anything that's actually done on the Ruby level is all visible there. It's fully public, and you can see anything. So in terms of the branch question, there's not much different in terms of any branch there. Sometimes the WikiRate's a little bit ahead, but I wouldn't ever recommend using that until it's we're only putting. It's probably not ready for other sites until it's put out as the gem release, and we're going to be trying to do that faster and faster. We got out 1.14.1, like I guess I put that out Sunday night, so it was only a little bit more than a week after 1.14. It's Thanksgiving in the U.S. this week, so there won't be one. There won't be one out this week, but there'll be more coming out soon. But then, sorry.
Yeah. What about the CSS?
So the CSS is all there in different cards, and that's the next thing. So really the next frontier is making it so that when they have a big chunk of code, like they have voting and they have all these things, that right now to put it to copy all of it over, you'd have to go to their site and figure out which pieces of CSS apply where, and basically it's all broken up into different places. all their styling is available in their CSS cards, so you can see it all. It's all very transparent, but it's not bundled conveniently for you to just copy it over in one little chunk. And that's really, I think, the next big step. There's nothing. There's a lot that we've done to make it so that that's not too far away. CSS. It used to be that CSS, all your custom CSS was in one card called star CSS. And then all your everything else was hard coded, and you couldn't do anything about it. Now all the CSS is in the cards, and you separate it out into as many as possible. So when we're really more thinking about bundling this up, we can just basically make it so that we can get the mod ready. So you get the mod and you get the exported CSS cards, and you just sort of run your import for those things. We do a lot more import-export than we ever used to do with all with JSON. And if you go to any card, like any search card, let me see. I guess like recent, even that might take a long time because I think it'll probably try to do all of everything ever listed. But if you go to either a pointer or a search card, like cards I've edited on basically any Wagn, and add .json to the end of the card name, then it just gives you all the cards in that returned by that search in JSON format, and that's the format that we can re-import very easily. So what we do to move things around to like from the dev and the live copy of WikiRate or from one site to another is we just make a pointer card called export, or a search card depending on what we're doing, or multiple of those cards. Put all the cards that we want to take off and copy from one place to another in one place. So you could do this on Wiki right now. You could make a pointer card on there, say called Peter's export. Put all the cards that you want from there, and then save that pointer card. And then when you do Peter's export.json, then you'll get a JSON file with everything in it, and then you can run an import script to put all that in there. And if I think we're shipping import script with Wagn now, and if not, that'd be very easy for us to add that in. Or do we, Philip? It's not in the gem?
It should be part of 1.14.1.
Okay. Anyway, if it's not there, that's all the deep code is there. It's just a matter of whether we make a little interface to it. So we certainly would be able to do that very quickly if it were missing.
So
Philip thinks it's there, and he's usually quite right.
So for those of us not running Wagn on our own server, is there any timeline to put a graphical interface to let us run that import?
There's not a timeline. I've heard you mention that once before, and that's like the only other time I've been pinged about that. But I haven't thought about it that much. But we should do it. And again, I don't think it would take all that much. Even if we weren't to do a graphical interface, what we could do even more quickly, and that the graphical interface would make it, we could make it usable very, very quickly, is just to make it so that there's basically you can give the you just do a file upload, and then basically have some sort of special URL that you write in, and that kind of thing. Yeah. And at that point, you can have the simplest graphical interface by adding your wiki link to that URL. But I think, I'm pausing a little bit because I'm just trying to think about what exactly the short answer is we don't have a plan around it, but it would take little enough that if that would make a big difference to you, then we should certainly really look at it. That would be important to you, I take it?
I mean, import is something I would like in general. If I understood you correctly, the format of the imported data would have to be in JSON. So that might or might not be something easy for me to get something else out into. Yeah, I mean, I think the use cases that I run into are one wanting to import a bunch of data from something like in spreadsheet format, comma separated value, into new cards, or I think the more difficult case would be merging it into existing cards.
So what we've got is pretty simple, and limited so far, but might be extensible to used that way pretty easily. So step one is parse. Like break it up into you're trying to get basically your name type content, and actually the other one that comes into play a lot is code name, because it's if it hooks up to any code, but that may or may not, you don't have to have that. It's basically just name type content of a bunch of cards, and right now we've got two merge options, or maybe three. But I think mostly it's you can either you just plop override, so just plop it all in, and if you've already got a card of that name, then just override it, that kind of thing, which is very easy. Or we've got what I think we call it merging pristine, which is it'd be easy to go the other route of saying if it already exists, do nothing. But the pristine variant is if only Wagonbot has ever edited this card, then it's okay to overwrite with this. Otherwise, don't. And so anyway, that's I can imagine wanting a lot more options, a lot more flexibility in terms of, and that actually is to me probably the biggest incentive to have something a lot more graphical, because you're actually needing a lot of interaction with it along the way. Yes with this, no with that sort of thing. Oh, bye, John. We lost him.
Okay, but the issue John is raising is well, as far as I'm concerned, quite an important issue, because, well, I use it since 2009, and the system I'm really having running in production, I think that's but we are now on 1.14.
Yes.
I think that's a 107, and it gives me really headaches to migrate this to the current level. So I'm really very much scared about all these migrations.
You're currently on 1.7?
Well, I'll just check. I have test systems, and actually today I was trying to upgrade from 1.13 to 1.14, and even that didn't work out perfectly. But anyway, I hope you will answer the mail.
Oh, you said I haven't seen it today. I've
No,
been in
okay.
meetings ever since I came in.
But that will. But I will just check what my production system is. Oh, I'm running on 1.11.7.
Oh, okay, that's better. So we introduced the separated migrations now, where the structure happens first and then the content, and that's much more robust. They used to be all integrated into one, and that would cause all sorts of problems because you were trying to do content migrations when the system couldn't handle content yet, basically, until all the structure was done. So basically, we introduced that at 110, and ever since 110, basically our objective now, even at 114, 115, is basically to be able to migrate directly from 110 to the present.
Yeah, that would be marvelous, of course.
And we,
but actually, currently, you should have intermediate steps if you go from 1.11 to 1.14.
You shouldn't have to do that now. From anything before that, you should have to have intermediate steps. But 1.11 to 1. You should. Philip just ran some tests with, and obviously there could be complications with specific databases. But what we have is one database dump at 1.10. It's a fairly simple database, But it's a complete Wagn database with a card, basically a test database. And we test every time before we do a major deployment. We test migrating that to the current.
Okay.
And even sometimes that involves, tweaking some of the older migrations to make sure that they still work in the current system. But so we keep older. Basically, we're getting better and better at migrating from further things back because we're testing that and improving our migration system as we go. So I won't promise that it'll work on the first try, just because I don't think any developer worth his salt spends a lot of time promising that kind of thing. But it really should, and basically we try to support that. If you run into problems doing that, it gets smoother and smoother. Now that's the migration of the database. That's just the migration of the database. The challenge is that you do have to do some extra things. So in other words, you don't have to do incremental migrations of the database to get there. What you do have to do if you're on 1.11, though, is move from being the old, like, all mixed in, just basically being a Ruby app, a Rails app, to move it to the Gem framework. And that's the biggest challenge going from 1.11 to the current.
Okay, but well, yeah, okay, maybe.
And if you have
I
mods,
think maybe one topic remaining there is the fact that not everything is stored in the database, but you have also these attached files, these uploaded files.
Yes. So that's what I said. When you there are three things. There's the database, there's the files, and of course there's any sort of mods, and you have some mods.
Yeah. I've also some mods. Okay,
those we can't automatically. those we can't ever automatically update. That'll be in the long run. Basically, has to be that there's any mod developer has to maintain those upgrades, and that's with something like Drupal, that's one of the most challenging things. And one of the reasons why we've wanted to be a little bit slow about getting people to write mods is that we want to have a lot of confidence that we're going to try to support the blessed part of the mod API for a long time, so that it's not changing underneath people as they do the upgrades. But yeah, so in terms of the database, you should be able to migrate directly from 1.11 thing. You will have to go from you have to move the files from one place to another place. The file structure is all the same. It's just moving the files directory into the right place.
I'm pretty confident that can be handled.
Yeah, it's a command or two, but
okay, but actually, well, please read my mail on that. So I was doing the migration from today from 1.13 to 1.14, and actually I got stuck with the @email config @email cards migration.
1.14.0 or 0.1?
I guess 0.1.
Oh, darn. We fixed something there from 0.0 to 0.1. So if it's 0.1, if it's 0.0, then try 0.1. If it's 0.1, then I'll have to look specifically.
Okay. Oh, no, okay. Well, let's forget about it right now, but please pay attention to it.
I definitely will.
I would love that if you could really put some attention, pay some attention to my mail on this issue.
Great. And I would encourage you, like, you're welcome to write me, but there are now, especially with Philip here, there are now more people that would be capable of submitting, and he might be able to do it on your hours. So if you make a support ticket, if it's something that you're comfortable making it public. If you're not, then send it to me. That's no problem. But if it's something you're comfortable being public, if you put it on the Wagn site, then Philip might see it before I do, or someone else. So,
okay.
I'm in the same time zone.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's easy.
Yeah. So you might get a faster response because I'll be sleeping or taking the kids to school or something while he's getting things done.
And what's your Gmail, Philip?
It's
Can you write your email address? I can also forward the message to you.
Yeah.
And in the future, I will place it on the Wagn site.
There we are.
Okay.
Now, I don't think spammers will watch through
I hope so.
45 minutes of the video in hopes that someone puts an email. Now I have to close it from my screen. There we go. If they work that hard, you almost should be willing to accept an email from them. No. Okay. Oh, we lost John again. Tom, what have you been up to? Have you been playing with Wagn at all lately?
A little bit, not too much. I've been meaning to get the gem version and try that. I had it on the what is it, the cloud thing, or what? I forgot what you call it, cloud store or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I took that down. I had it basically just for my office. We kind of used it like just an information center, and I had all sorts of information on deeds and stuff like that. But we shrunk the size of my office, and I didn't really need it as much. So I'm still looking at one for a food pantry that I work with to give information about like getting benefits and stuff like that. But I haven't played with it in about a month or so, probably.
Right.
I'm anxious to try the gem. I want to get that up and run, and I'll probably put it either, I don't know where I'll put it, maybe DigitalOcean or something like that.
I think it's kind of fun. If you have any, I'd be interested to hear what your experience of that is like. It occurs to me that we still, Philip, I haven't mentioned this to you, I don't think, but if we wanted to be able to run Wagn on somewhere like Heroku, then we would have to we'd have to have a second configuration option for file handling, because you can't write to the file system on Heroku. You have to write only externally to a separate server, like in Amazon Web Services or something. That's a fairly intelligent way to do those sorts of things. So they're minimizing the data there. But the downside is you can't have the true file security that we have, where you're using the xsend file to check permissions before you actually release the file out. But I would think that Heroku, a little Heroku script or something, would be a good way to go for the kind of thing that Tom is talking about to play setup. If we did that, we'd have to. I think that's the main thing that would have to happen before you could do a Wagn on Heroku.
I think there's a lot of Rails apps with like little scripts that cover. I think there's like environmental variables with Heroku, and of course you got to do the stuff to save anything to S3 or wherever you're going to put it in files. Yeah,
and that's why the S3. We used to use S3, and then we stopped once we had genuine file security. Because basically what it does is it comes to your same web server. You check Wagn. You does this little quick card-based permission checking, and then Wagn hands it back to Apache to deliver the file. And so that little exchange can only happen, really, as far as I know, if we're all on the same server. Maybe it'd be possible to do it with S3, but the more common way for people to do this sort of thing is they just stick it on S3, and it's security through obscurity, just hoping that people won't get the URL. But if someone accidentally puts the URL somewhere on the web, or it can accidentally get out, then it's on Google, and it's all out there, and once it's out, it's hard to get back. But with Wagn URL, since permission is checked every time, you could put it out on the web, and nobody without permission could see it. So there are advantages for people that are there's certain there are lots of different use cases. For WikiRate, WikiRate doesn't need this kind of thing at all, because WikiRate is all about it's all very transparent. It's all very public data, and if anything, we need to optimize there to make it so that we don't go through the Wagn's permission checking to waste Wagn's time on this kind of thing, and just let that go through. But I think probably to me, a lot of the value of Wagn is that you can go a little bit deeper into business logic, deeper into whereas something like I think of something like Drupal and WordPress as being a front-end thing that can slowly take a step or two into business logic. Wagn can really represent your knowledge management needs and some of your business logic inside, and then you sort of add an external face on top of it. So I think of it being more, for most people, and WikiRate's not one, but for most people, more of a business logic tool. So the file security is a bit more important there than for others. I think. All right. Well, we're nearing the end of the hour here. I think what I want to talk about next week is probably the new history handling. I don't know if anybody's looked at the new 1.14 history stuff yet. This is largely Philip's baby. He really went through and overhauled everything. And one part you may have noticed that Peter, you at least may have noticed that some of the 1.4 upgrades a little slow. That's because every single revision has to be gone through and migrated to there are 3 different tables now rather than one card revision table. But so it does take a bit, but it's doing some real work and doing some real valuable things. And if you go look at the history of especially a structured card on Wagn 113, and then go look at the history of a structured card on Wagn 114, you'll see it's a completely different, dramatically improved situation there. So
I just want to make quite a different remark, if I may.
Sure.
I was just digging into Smalltalk. You know Smalltalk?
I haven't. People have talked to me about it for a long time. I've never really gotten into it. But
okay.
Have you played with Smalltalk, Philip?
Not really. I know what it is, but never used it.
Okay.
Okay, but there's a great similarity between Smalltalk and Ruby, actually.
Mm-hmm. That's what I've heard.
And well, it's to a certain extent it's an old-fashioned environment. But anyway, it's funny to see what's happening with it, because there are quite some developments around it. And for example, one guy, he made an implementation of Smalltalk in Node.js.
Oh, really? Wow.
And well, I would just like to mention this, and well, you maybe you should pay attention, because there might be a combination where the two could cooperate together. I really don't know, but it intrigues me a lot.
I'm curious. I keep thinking that if I were starting, and no one else has really totally agreed with this, but I think if we were starting Wagn today, I would be very tempted to consider doing Node.js and MongoDB. There's a lot. We still may go MongoDB because of that, but the value of having so much of the logic all in one language is really there, and I don't know exactly what it means like to have Smalltalk on top of Node.js, and what that does for performance is it sounds fascinating, but like if there were ways to make it to bridge that gap, that's very interesting. But one of the place where it becomes very tempting to me is that we've WikiRate in particular, but with lots of different sites are doing more and more things in JavaScript, and it's a lot easier to do now that JavaScript's in cards because you can separate them out. And in fact, we have CoffeeScript cards. I don't know if you've ever heard of CoffeeScript or seen that, but that's just something that compiles to JavaScript, but it's a slightly more attractive. That's a subjective thing, but I consider it a more attractive language. But then it compiles into JavaScript, and that all happens automatically in Wagn. But anyway, what I find is that there's this temptation to reproduce certain things that we do in Ruby and JavaScript, like just key handling, name handling kind of things, or those sorts of things. And as soon as I'm having to write something that I've done in Ruby and JavaScript again, I think, oh, what if so much better not to have the two copies of this. They can get it separated by maybe the functionality is not identical, and it's a world of potential problems that I think that even though writing a whole big suite in JavaScript wouldn't be my favorite thing, it's like having everything in one language would be very tempting.
Okay. And are you using an interactive development environment like RubyMine for the system right now?
No, Philip is actually doing a lot more of the hardcore development than I am because I'm doing so much of the coordination and sort of project management and such. He's got a lot. I don't know if we call it an IDE, but he's certainly done a lot with TextMate to. There are integrations. He could basically there's a lot of integration between, especially the testing environment and being able to basically run tests from his editors and those sorts of things. And you want to say some more?
GitHub, for example.
Integrations with GitHub, integrations with a little bit of Pivotal Tracker and Airbrake. So there's not. I say it's not an IDE because there's not one main tool that we use that ties everything together. But we are using a lot of tools that talk to each other in interesting ways.
Okay.
So, I think probably the main glue that we're using is TextMate right now for that.
I used it too.
Well, cool. This 11:59 here, so right on the hour. But we'll come back next week, and I think we'll talk about the histories that were introduced. This account handling was the biggest part of 1.13. The history is the biggest part of 1.14. There are lots of other things that have come along the way, like all the JavaScript handling that I mentioned briefly in 1.13, and a lot of the email handling is very new, and following behavior and that sort of thing. I think we actually will do a separate call on following and emails and all that sort of stuff because there's so much that's been happening there. But I'm just really excited to see you guys again and to be doing this, and I appreciate your coming, and I hope to see everyone next week.
Okay, bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.